Hello, and what a beautiful sunny week we're having. I'm Ben Harlow, and joining me in Benjy's Cafe podcast this week is the actor and comedian Adam Moss. This year we'll see Adam star in his 11th consecutive panto at the Palace Theatre Mansfield, wowing audiences with his cheeky humour, boundless energy and smile. Adam entered the world of show business at the age of 6, the beginning of a remarkable 35-year career. Adam received a BAFTA nomination for his role in the captivating short film The Adventures of George the Projectionist, and is also the force behind Mossy Media. He has made live audiences laugh globally, and his TV credits include EastEnders, Chucklevision and Holby City. In this episode, Adam and I dive into making people laugh and feeling happy, and Adam shares the joy of fatherhood and family life, plus how he finds peace away from the stage and the influences that shaped his comedy career.
And we used to watch the comedians, we used to watch the Will Tappers and Shunters, and those acts, I was always like, wow, how do you know that that's funny, and how have you been able to juggle like that, and have you put a unicycle and done that? You know, I was so intrigued and seeing some of the variety stuff. You know, Brucey was a big thing, but Norman Wisdom for me was like one of the best slapsticks. A beautiful sketch between him and Brucey doing the old painting sketch is just one of my all-time favourites.
Oh, Bruce Forsyth, my hero. Good game, good game. Adam's funny, kind, with a twinkle in his eye. He's adorable. Welcome to Benjy's Cafe podcast, Adam Moss. Good morning, Adam. How are you?
Good morning, Ben, and thank you very much for having me on. This is absolutely lovely. It's been a couple of months since I've seen you, isn't it? And in a completely different light as well.
I know. Well, we're both looking completely different, but I've missed that smile. Look at that smile. You put a smile on my face every day. As you just hinted, Adam, we met on Panto. We did Aladdin last year at the Palace Theatre Mansfield. Yeah. Just want to thank you. You were so great to work with. You were so kind, so generous, and bloody funny. Like, what a great combo. And honestly, it was such a joy to spend Christmas with you.
Well, I've, like you said in the intro there, which was lovely. That sounds completely different when it's said like that, isn't it? 11 years for this year. I've been at Mansfield, and I always say when anybody comes to Mansfield, it's one of those places that is very fun, and what we're there for essentially is just to make them people laugh. And if we're having fun on stage, everybody else is going to have just as much fun, which we did, and it was one of those situations where it was we just clicked, didn't we? It was just one of those. It was really good because we sort of came into that rehearsal room. I was like 4 foot and a fart. You was like 6 foot and, well, in heels 7 foot, and we were just like, what is going on here? Like, this is going to be comedy gold, which it was, and sell out audiences pretty much every day. So. Yeah, we did really well there.
The audiences were wonderful. It's such a great venue as well, isn't it? Lovely crew, lovely feel to the whole kind of vibe of the place. Why do you think it is so special? It was just a lovely, lovely experience.
I think, well, first of all, the cast and crew, and they don't get a mention that much, the crew and people that work at that theatre. I wouldn't have been going back so often if I thought that it was going to be horrible every year. Yeah. I've been there for so long that I've seen changes in management, I've seen changes in people, I've seen different crew members come and go, I've seen cast after cast come and go, and I'm sort of like, oh, I'm still here, So it's just a nice, fun, loving place, and because it's such a small, intimate venue, it's brilliant for comedy. So they can see every sort of thing that's going on in your face. I'd love a heckler, and the people in Mansfield are very much panto people. I say it all the time. I go outside and I, chat to them afterwards as well. And it is constantly like that. I've grown up with them. I've held babies that are now 10. I've seen people that have been engaged, that have got married and now got kids, that are now coming to the panto. So I think for the people that come to Mansfield, they see me as their like little brother or their dad or their granddad, depends how, I mean, I'm getting on, and it's just that kind. It's just a nice vibe around that area, and we're not overpriced either. That's another big issue, especially with the current climate and what's going on. And I just think it's, and they know what they're going to get. They absolutely know what they're going to get. And as you probably notice, we do it not just 100%, we do 150%, where we just literally every single day, it's like bang, bang, bang. So what was it, 66 shows we did that
I think
that
so,
year?
yeah. It was a lot, wasn't it? My goodness.
But, you come in and you know what you're there for. You know exactly what you've got to do. And I love it. I mean, and every day's different.
Yeah.
And I love tripping you up on your lines. You love doing bits and pieces to me. And it was that kind of... And when you've got people that are safe with you like that, and it's, and it wasn't just you I was doing it to. I was doing it to quite a lot of people. Because I'm one of those, because where I used to tour, you work on your own. So where you have people to work with, I'm like, oh, brilliant. It's like a kid in a candy shop, a candy shop, you know what I mean? And I'm like, all right, let's see what happens on this day, or let's change that joke, or change a prop, or... it's that kind of, like I say, it's not it's panto, and it should be fun. And I go from the years gone by, them old comics that used to be like, your Morecambe and Wise, your Tommy Coopers and stuff like that used to be like, do stuff off the cuff, see what happens. If they laugh, they laugh. If they don't, nobody's died, have they?
And what is great, Adam, is that you made the cast feel comfortable on stage and off stage, but also the audience feel comfortable. I think that's why over the years that you've been there, audiences have grown and grown now to record-breaking numbers, Adam, because they know what they're getting, and you're yourself. It's that reliability, and it's almost like a comfort for the audiences, I imagine. Like, it's Christmas, Moss is here, like, let's just have fun. And the importance of just having 2.5 hours, or maybe a bit longer if I'm having a good one, just to relax and enjoy themselves. It's so lovely, isn't it?
I think, but also I think you've absolutely nailed it. It's not only them feeling comfortable, but me feeling comfortable, being able to do, not, and I've got to admit, I'm not 100% PC. And, I'll admit that straight away. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I don't like particular comics. Some people like me, some people don't. That's just part of the job. But I know that the longevity there wouldn't have been there if people didn't want me back. And you are right. It's like that kind of, right, let's sit back, relax. What's going to happen today? And the reactions that I get every year are just absolutely amazing. And if I hear like oh God, wasn't that good this year? It would devastate me, because I think a lot of people, it would do that. I think with people that have been residents in a lot of places, a lot of comics, a lot of dames, you can get really complacent and you can start, dropping the ball a bit. And every year I try and come up with something new jokes, new intros, not just for me. Like I love, the joke never has to be from the comic. As long as it's in there, I don't care. And I think that's the best way to do it.
And what I think as well, Adam, is that I think we're quite similar souls. I think a lot of creatives are, because we do care so much.
Yeah.
We pride ourselves on our performance, and we give so much every single show. And it is a tough schedule, my goodness, as you mentioned. But we care so much that we do want people to enjoy themselves, and to get that feedback is lovely, because we all need a little pat on the back sometimes, don't we?
Yeah, and I think, everyone will turn around and go, oh, you're a show-off. And as you said, I am very much me on stage. It's not really a character. It's just me going out, having a chat with the audience for 2.5 hours. And if I can, you see everybody else like in rehearsals and over the years, and especially this year, we had some incredible singers, and we've had an opera singer one year. And I sort of go, you guys have trained like amazingly over these years and honed your craft and stuff like that. And you've come to Mansfield, and I'm absolutely going to mess it up for you. But what I like the audience seeing is the normality, and that we are just normal people. And we are, you see me in the street, by all means, come and say hello. I am no way a star. I am nothing like that. I'm just a normal bloke. I go and speak to people, and I'm just normal. But the fact is, I've got funny bones, and I like people having a good time. You know what I mean? And as you said, we're all creatives, and you're right. It's nice to hear that feedback, good or bad. I mean, it's, not everyone's going to like it, but I also think that, out of 32 to 35,000 people that go through that theatre, if you get one person that's not particularly happy with it, well, we've done all right, haven't we? And Mansfield's very much like that, very honest. There's no two way. If you're spending hard-earned money that you've saved up to bring your kids, your mum, your dad, your nan, your granddad, whatever it is, to come and see a panto, and you spent your hard-earned money to do that, then they deserve a good show. Because, I didn't have much growing up. We didn't have much at all. And very working class family. So I know how those people and how much money they've had to save if you are on a minimum wage or whatever, but they are absolutely committed to coming to that panto every year just to make their kids happy.
We're in a position and a job where we can make people feel that happy. It's
Yeah.
so privileged, isn't it, really, when you think
Yeah.
about it?
Well, we've said it before, me and you, when we was backstage, and we said, like, this could be a kid's first time in the theatre.
Oh,
And if I went out and had the ump that day, you leave everything on the doorstep. We've all got problems at home. We've all got kids, or most of us got kids. We've all got something going on in our lives. But my escape and my fun comes from seeing other people have fun. I'm a very sort of giving, generous kind of person.
yeah.
And I very much love it when people say that to me, because I'm like, brilliant, because I never want to be that, oh, he's a right diva. Oh God, he's this. I don't want to be that person.
That's me.
That's you, yeah. Yeah. I've got to have the biggest dressing room, darling.
and with the tallest ceiling as well.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that was a great combo this year. I mean, it was just it was just nice. And like I said to you before, Ben, and I said it to you on stage, we've known each other for a long time, but we've actually didn't meet for a long time.
Yeah.
I saw you in Legally Blonde, and I was like, is there any chance we can get him like in Mansfield? It would be great as a Dane. Then you were playing Prince and stuff like that. I don't know how you did it with your headshots, but
I didn't use. It wasn't my face. That's how I've survived 25 years. My God.
Cut and paste. Cut and paste.
Yeah,
That's it.
It was Ben Fogle or Bruce Forsyth. Bruce Fogle.
No, and I said to you, and it's just nice when you get. It's very easy to be up against a Dame. You're both comics at the end of the day. You're both comedy. You are the glue that keeps the whole panto together.
Yeah.
And I think when you're, you can, and I have been up against Danes that have been like, no, this is my spot. You say those jokes and whatever, and you're like, brilliant. I'll go for it. Fill your boots.
Yeah.
And I genuinely don't care. And I've had comics that have been, oh, I don't like working with other comics, or. You get those kind of people in the business. But, if you stay true to yourself and you know what you're good at. Years ago, I probably in my teens, 20s, I would have been really like, oh my God, I shouldn't say this, I shouldn't do that. But now I've been in it for far too long to care.
Yeah.
And that's it, I think. I think when you've been on the circuit, you've had some good gigs and you've had some absolutely terrible gigs.
Yeah.
That's where you learn.
I think that confidence and comfort comes with experience and also life experience as well, doesn't it? Where you feel comfortable in yourself, you're in a good situation, that it's just like, okay, look, let's keep everything buoyant, and ultimately we just want the audience to have a good time. There's no need to be possessive about gags or lines, is there?
No. And I have seen, God, I've seen rival comics and dames.
Really?
Yeah. Like, like the comic would go out first and do all the dames gags, or
God,
there'd be a good gag that the dame done the night before and the comic could steal it, all that type of stuff. And you're like, really? Like, is this about you? Are you actually thinking about the audience that have paid a lot of money to come and watch this? Hard-earned money. And that's, that is always in the back of my head, Ben. It's always in the back of my head. Like, I don't like letting people down, right? When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And if I have at any point let someone down, I'm like, oh God, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to not be there, or I don't know, whatever. But I when you've got selfish people like that, I just think you're not thinking about the audience. And my number one in all of it, I don't need to get on with anybody, but as long as they're laughing and they're enjoying that and go out and go, that was the best thing we've ever seen, then I've done my job, haven't I?
Oh, you do more than that, Adam. You make people so happy year in, year out. You make people laugh. That sound of laughter is joyous. But that ease that you bring to a show, that you bring on stage, that just doesn't happen, does it? You touched on it just then. The graft, you put in the graft of the comic. My goodness, you've put in those hours to get to the stage where you are comfortable on stage, haven't you? The touring, the comedy circuit.
Yeah.
It's a tough route, isn't it?
It's a very tough route. I originally started just doing. I went abroad first to do it. I went to. Everybody thought I started in like the holiday parks and stuff over here, but I did like a coach style thing. I became a manager at Thomas Cook when I was about, and I was called a hotspotter. So I would go to different countries and go and be a host, or I'd go and I was I really went to do it because I wanted to go on the circuit. So I was doing like 10, 15-minute spots, adding material, taking material out. And it was a bit of a graft. And you got to realise that when holidaymakers are abroad, they're in happy mode anyway. When you go to the back end of Skegness and it's pouring down with rain, it's a completely different kettle of fish, So yeah, in my case, I went abroad and I was abroad for about 3 years, just honing my craft. On my days off, I'd be doing gigs elsewhere. Always writing sketches and material and stuff, using it on my hosting, really. I did presenting a lot. And that's where I could do all the stuff with the kids and I could, I would say I've played in front of probably 1 million kids over the years, up and down the country, around the world. So I started there and then, I've done the ships. I never felt worthy of going into like expensive places. That's how I always felt. And I was like, I love that kind of like rubbing shoulders with the working class. I loved all that because that's where I originated from. That's what I like doing, and I know where they are in life. I know what they've done. I know how hard it is to get there, and I just had stuff that I knew would work. Back then, you could pretty much say what you wanted. It's very difficult now to write a lot of stuff and not offend anybody, and that's the other big thing for a comic. I think I've always said it's very easy to F and Jeff on stage, but it's very hard to write a clean joke. And trying to be on topic and not offend.
Yeah.
You've probably seen it when you've had producers in your ears going, shall we be doing that? Shall we not? And that's the side people don't see. So before you've even got to the product or your show, I've done different venues. And like I've said to you, if any comics turns around to you and said, my life has been 100% laughs, then they're lying. Right? I remember doing a week of gigs that I just absolutely died. Absolutely died. Nothing different in my act. Nothing that I did that was any different. The style didn't change. And you talk to other comics as well, and you go, driving home, you're sort of like, I've just been at 2.5, 3 hour drive to get there, and then just died,
And how tough is that, Adam, when you're coming off stage and it hasn't worked for you? There must be some quite low periods, those late night drives, and what would you use to kind of buoy yourself up again? Was it just a case of getting back out there and keep ploughing on?
Bit of both, really, Ben. Like you're coming off stage. When I was on the circuit doing what I was doing, there was like a plethora of other comics that we would talk to, and we all know our own material. And one person would call you up and go, oh my God, absolutely stormed it in this venue. And you'll go, don't worry, I died on there last week. Yeah, no worries. Then you go to the next venue and be like, and it's literally like that. Like you could do a 6-week to an 8-week tour, and you'd do 6 weeks of amazing shows, and in 2 weeks of it will be dying left, right, and centre. In periodic, and I think the mechanism, when at the start I was taking it more as an insult. I was like, oh my God, like, they don't know comedy, and it's like, it could be simply that a load of them turn up on a bus, and you've got to see it from the audience point of view. They're the ones watching you. They could have had a crowd that had been in all week that had been annoying them, which happened once. People have lost their bags when they've come abroad. It's a multitude of different things. Their transfers were late. This was late. And you're like, I get it. You want to go on holiday and relax, and then you got some idiot stood on stage telling you jokes. That's it, isn't it? Yeah, but I never took it at the beginning. I took it as a bit of an insult, but I've never taken it sort of like to that extreme where it's like, I'm never doing this again because because it was part and parcel. There was one thing a comic told me, a very old comic, that turned around to me. He said, I love doing the gigs. He said, but what I would always say to you is have about 10 to 15 comebacks that are go-tos. He goes, always have 10 to 15 comebacks. He goes, and that'll see you through. And I was like, wow. And he did, so when I was getting heckled, I was like, bang, see you later, bang, see you later, But no, I've never not, there's been a couple of times at the end of season when you're tired and you're like, you can see that holiday in the distance, especially when I didn't have kids and stuff. And I was like, oh, here we go. I've just done like 8 weeks, night after night after night, which is, your bread and butter. It's paying the bills,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and that's sort of like, I did, when I feel like I'm not at my best, I then go, right, it's now time to call it a day. So I still do the touring, but I pick what I want to do when I want to do it. But I originally come off the circuit just before the pandemic because I wanted to start a family. And I've seen so many comics in dressing rooms, posters that are like from the 1980s, and I'm stood next to one that are like, in the 2000s, and they're still doing it. And you're like, what is that you? And but majority of comics that I've seen have done it for so long that you hear stories of, I've been divorced. My kids don't speak to me anymore. I've toured for so long. I know acts that were out once, twice, 3 times a night just doing gigs, And I'm like, well, that's not much. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be a family man. So I was like, sacrifices you make through life,
What I love, Adam, is the balance you have. Panto every year, you've got Moss in media, but your role as a dad, your children are beautiful. You are such a good dad. Can you describe the feeling when they arrived on this beautiful planet? Did all your other worries just kind of dissipate, be it career-wise, and just what have they brought to your life, and also the balance it's given you?
Well, that's the right word there, Ben. Balance is just, and prioritising. Poppy was born in the pandemic. So when people say they had a terrible time, and I will never take that pandemic away from anybody because I know people lost people and stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, it was quite a joyous occasion because we had Poppy to focus on. I didn't really worry about what was going on. And I was like, look, if I can pay my bills and I can pay, do what I need to do and make sure that baby is safe and happy and my wife is safe because obviously, she went through all of that as well. And that was our first Poppy. And she just, when she came into the world, it was just a light in a very dark situation. And it brought a lot of light to surrounding people, my nans, my mum and dad's, and all the grandparents and stuff like that. And it was just an amazing time. It's nothing that you can really describe unless you're there. You feel happy that you're lucky enough to have children. You feel happy that you're a dad. I never get used to a kid calling me dad. It's really strange. And now I've got 2 of them. Dad, 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 dad. Shut up. But it was more Oakley that we had a lot more trouble with. That was really difficult for me. It was not that. It was a couple of years ago. It's still quite fresh because I just remember going to the hospital and Karen was like, I've got a really bad stomach, and that you don't want to hear that when you're in the hospital. About 3 hours prior to that, we'd been told that there was a complication somewhere. And I was like, oh, God, these are the nightmares. And you get a doctor come in. This was the worst part for me. The doctor was sort of very blasé about it. Oh, there's something wrong, so we're going to have to send you to the labour ward right now. And I was a bit like, okay, doctor, we could have come out with that a little bit different, but I suppose you say it how you say it. You know what I mean? Know your audience. So I had to ask my mum to quickly come up, and we lived in Manchester at the time, and my mum and dad and everybody's down in Essex, so we had no one close by at the time. And Oakley was due about 2 weeks later, so it was all very scary. You just don't know what to do, and you don't know what to say. Should I crack jokes? Should I not be funny? Should I, be normal? But I'm like, well, just be you. Just get through it. Just you've been a dad. This is important. Anyway, we got there, and my mum come and visited Karen with Poppy, and we was all in there, and it just made her feel better. And I said to Karen, you stay there on the bed, and then I'll just take mum back to the flat, and I'll be back. And as I came, must have been gone about half an hour. We weren't that far from the hospital. Came back, and Karen was still on the bed, and she went, Adam, I just don't feel good. And I was like, well, that's the worst sign ever. And literally, when you see about 6 midwives just come in, rush your wife out, it's not the best of things to ever see. Now, bear in mind, this was happening in October, just the cusp of October, November, when I was disappearing to go to Panto, right? So rushed her down there. I had to get a load of scrubs on, and I was like, well, they're going to opt for a cesarean. And this is the bit where it just goes from 0 to what has just happened, And Karen went in there, and she just upsets me a bit. She was absolutely out of it. She was out of it. And I was like, and the midwife come over to me and she said to me, if you had to save one, which one would you save? And I was like, how can you answer that? Like, I'm not playing God here, and I didn't have Karen's parents there. I was like, oh my God, this is like the worst decision of my, the worst thing that I've ever. I was like, what do you do in that situation? I was like, what is going on? And I literally, I just went, everyone stop, and everyone just stopped in their tracks, and I went, what is going on? Because I've been thrown into scrubs. You've asked me a weird question. You've made Karen sign something that I don't know. She doesn't want a cesarean, and I don't know what is going on, And so literally some other woman went in front of us for the cesarean, and then a load of people rushed out to her, and it was just like this head midwife and this trainee and me. So she said to Karen, you're not to push because it could rupture something. It could be, it could be bad, right? But Karen was like, I just can't. I have to push. So... And then she completely changed. She went, right, let's do it. Let's deliver. Right. So this midwife just went absolutely. She was brilliant. Looked brutal at the time, but she was sort of punching Karen in the back. And I thought, well, I'll have some of that. And I thought I'd come in with a little. And she, I said, what are you doing? She goes, I'm directing the pain to somewhere else. And so everything happened. And all of a sudden, this baby appeared and it flew. And that is why Oakley's called Oakley, Albury, which is after the granddad, Clark for Clark Kent, Moss, because Clark Kent, because he flew out. Yeah, so that's, but he was delivered safely. They said it could have been a completely different scenario, which, touch wood, that didn't happen. And you just want to be there as a support. There's not much you can do but be a support. And that God, it felt like hours that I was in there, but it was only like 15, 20 minutes. And it was, and he was born on Halloween, so it just says it all, really, doesn't it? But that just, I hated that. It was just awful.
But so now I guess those moments when you are together, they're just beautiful, aren't they? When you think, Adam, all the travelling you did to get to the stage of your career and life that you're in, to have this beautiful family, just to all be together. And I can see it. I saw it backstage whenever everyone was there. It's what a beautiful little unit you've got, and that must give you so much happiness.
Well, it does, because I feel like I made the right choices. Like some people go through life and they sort of go, oh, I'll stay on for another year and I'll do this for... And I've always been very decisive. I've always been very much, I don't like doing it anymore. I'm going to try something else. I'll go for an audition. I don't particularly like that director, so I won't do it. That's been my ethos. If I don't feel like it in my gut that it's right, I won't do it. And that really happened when I sort of wanted to be a dad. Me and Karen had lots of discussions. In fact, about 2 weeks after me and Karen got together, we both had the same kind of conversation. We was like, we're in our 30s. Are we really, do you want to be a dad? Do you want to be a mum? That was that, and in your 20s, if somebody was to do that, you'd be like, oh, go, all right, back up. We've only just met. But, when you're a little bit older, it's a little bit different. So we knew where we was going, but we want to do it the right way. We want to get married, have a place. And I wanted my kids to come into this world not feeling that they need to beg for stuff, or need, like, I wanted them to have what, that I didn't have, So... Yeah, but it is a lovely unit. They're great. They're funny. And what's even better is when you are doing panto and stuff like that, it's, again, they're all the first, not for just me, but for them as well. So they're coming to see their dad do something. And they're very... I mean, Poppy this year didn't know whether I was Wishy or Dad. And it's a bit like, how do you not... I mean, I'm not the best actor. So, come on. But it's how they sort of see you. And like sometimes, I'll be sat on the seat here and they're doing like a little ghost gag thing together and you're a bit like, that's my life there. You know what I mean? That's what I've done for years. So it's lovely. It's really, they're just great. They're lovely kids and they're very polite, very, they feel like they're me and Karen's, they're very, very loving, beautiful little kids. Yeah.
And you make literally thousands of kids laugh every Christmas, Adam.
Yeah.
I just wondered, when you were a kid, who made you chuckle? Can you remember your first kind of like your first inkling of like, these people are funny on the box or on the radio and all?
Yeah, I can actually.
I'd quite like to plough this route in my life.
Well, my dad's very funny. right? So my dad was always into comedy. So and we used to watch the comedians. Used to watch the Wheel Tappers and Shunters, and those acts. I was always like, wow, like how have you? How do you know that that's funny? And how have you been able to juggle like that? And have you put a unicycle and done that? You know, I was so intrigued and seeing some of the variety stuff. You know, Brucey was a big thing. But Norman Wisdom for me was like one of the best slapsticks. You know what I mean? And you know, the beautiful sketch between him and Brucey doing the old painting sketch is just one of my all-time favourites. It's black and white. And there's been elements of Norman, Brucey, Tommy, all them guys that have come into the Mansfield Panto or into my act, because kids are not going to know that kind of stuff now unless you're on TikTok or doing whatever you... But they won't know any of that because that's what I grew up with. That's what I remember. But those clean, clever Saturday night when you only had like 3 channels... It was such an easy life, weren't it? It was so much easier back then. And I feel any new comic coming into this has got a lot of pressure to come into this. I didn't feel when I came off the circuit there was anybody on my tails, you know? I feel that I could go back into it now and be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Whereas before, the comics before me were like, oh God, Mossy's coming in. Oh God, this person's coming in. And that, you know, so you had a bit of rivalry. But I loved those old style, but not just like in the UK, not just in England, but you had like in Scotland, you had like Francie and Josie, who they're just
brilliant.
Yeah, but they were never really known down here, and they were just, if you could understand them, I mean, their accents were like, what? But they were fantastic comics. Yeah, and I loved all that. But my big thing was Norman. And just on a quick story of Norman, I went to the Isle of Man to do a gig, and he was in a nursing home over there, and I was like, I've got to try my luck, right?
Yeah.
So I went to the actual nursing home, knocked on the door, and I said, is there any chance I could see Norman Wisdom? And they went, you can't come near unless you get a password from his daughter. And I went, brilliant. So I got in touch with her. She went, listen, any other week, I would have said yes. She goes, but he's having a bit of a bad time at the moment. And I said, that's absolutely fine. I said, that as long as I feel like I've been there, you know? And he died about 2 weeks after I'd been to visit. And I was like, I was in like reaching distance. However, the daughter got in touch with me after all the bits and pieces happened. She goes, if you're ever on the Isle of Man, let me know. So I went and done another gig on the Isle of Man, went over to this nursing home, and she let me hold his cap and his waistcoat. And I was like, oh my God, that's like, you know, when you're like, this is just... And it's one of the things, you know, when back in the day where you're like, oh, I wish I had my phone on me. Because I didn't know what was happening.
So imagine that feeling of holding one of your idols' caps and the waistcoat.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
I think
just
for
wonderful.
me, I am a little bit glad I didn't meet him.
Yeah.
Because I think it probably would have tarnished.
Yeah.
You know, because he was so ill at the time, I just think he wouldn't have been him. So, but even right up to his 80s, he was still doing the little trip and the little gags and the, you know, the whole grabbing people. It was just, you know, Cannon and Ball were another like massive, you know, massive great variety pair that people, I just think people overlooked those guys back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. You know, you've got to realise that was our UK British comedy that really were world class, you know.
I often think, Adam, that I would have loved that, you know, just being in that world just for a little period of time, you know, channeling my inner Brucey. It would have been wonderful.
Can you imagine? Just sat in a room and heard some of those stories. Like I hear it from some of the actors or dames that I've worked with. Some of the dames have got some stories, I tell you.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you sort of like, I'm in awe. Like, you've worked with that, you've done that, you know. You think you've had a bit of a varied life or varied career, and you sit there with some of these people, you're like, wow.
And now, Adam, I'd love to know, aside of, you know, of comedy, what makes you happiest? Would it be time with your children, or I know you enjoy your outdoors and your walking. What makes you the happiest now, away from the entertainment business?
Do you know what? It's very strange because when people speak to you as a comic or as, you know, as the job that you do, they think you're like that all the time, right? Now, I'm not one of these comics that are all depressed every day and drink every day and da-da-da. I'm not one of those comics. And that was an era that I used to think about it and go, I don't want to be like that. Always have thing to do. And because it's very easy to be a comic and then just go, oh, well, I'd go and work of an evening and I'll just sleep in bed till the next gig, which I know some comics do. But yeah, my kids have just made my life completely different. And we go and do soft play. We go to the field, park, when they're not in nursery or doing anything like that. I just love it. I think it's great fun. But it also brings you back to you being a kid. You can't be anything different around kids. You can't be sad around a kid because they'll tell you that you can't wear something without them insulting you, And for me, it's that. But for me personally, I do like creating. I'm a big creator aside from work. So I like going and fly drones. I go like over the peaks sometimes, and it's just nice just to be out in the open, nobody about, no screaming, no shouting, no audiences, no nothing, and just be there, go for a little walk, and just it's just peaceful, and it's not all the time I do it, but on those rare occasions that I just get to go, is there any chance I can just go for an hour? Yeah, no worries, see you in a bit. I'll disappear. And you won't see me, my phone's off. And I like it. Family's important, very important. My all my family are getting in, their 70s. Me and Karen had a conversation about this the other day. You just never know what's around the corner. And it's always nice to meet up with them, go for a pint, go and have I like a beer garden on the odd occasion. But I do like socialising, but I'm very happy in myself just to go and sit in a restaurant by myself, go and have coffee by myself and go, how relax you do that.
So as well, similar, Adam, honestly. It's just lovely. It's just a chance to switch off, isn't it? Especially during a run of a show or a tour when, you have to be up every night, don't you? Just have that bit of peace and quiet to yourself is lovely.
I've always said this to people. I was like, if you was to work in a big supermarket, you don't finish work and then go out of all the people that work in Tesco's or Asda's, do you? We are in a job where we are sociable, but we're not only front facing to the audience, we've also got to be like that backstage to people that, and you don't want to say certain things to offend people. You don't want to say things that you want to, say things that you want to, make people feel uncomfortable or sad or this, that, and the other. So sometimes it's quite nice just shutting off and going, I'll see you tomorrow, or I'll go and disappear. I love editing as well. I love doing me editing. That's a big thing for mine.
Yeah, well, Mossy Media, that seems to be flying, Adam. That's so great.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that came out on the circuit because people wanted to know if there was anybody that did posters or pictures, and I used to take pictures of people and go, yeah, come here, I'll just put one together for you, Then that's how that snowballed, and that's been going for like 10 years. And I just started a new one this year, a new business called Elite Drone Services, which is basically just me doing what I love doing, but just turn it into a bit of business and hopefully generating a bit more cash. I never do anything to sort of be like, oh, got money. But I'm like, well, I've got 2 kids. And if it's something that we can go on holiday, I like going on little holidays, little adventures. We don't do like 4 weeks everywhere because we get bored. We do like a weekend. We'll go to Blackpool and go in the arcades, or we go down south to see all the grandparents, or we'll go across, down to a pebbly beach and just go crabbing or something like that, and it's just that kind of, we love it, that's...
Could you go away for a long weekend and try and find my acting career, please?
There's nowhere that we can find that, Ben. I'm sorry. Like, I'm really... When I looked at your bio, I was like, no wonder it's that short.
What I love, Adam, is the balance you have in your life. You're a wonderful chap. You're a wonderful father, and a little just something that I hope it's okay to touch on. You lost your dear friend John, who was MD the Panto Mansfield for a number of years. Didn't know him myself, but you could see the swell of support after his death in helping raise money for him and his family. Isn't it awful how somebody can just be there 1 minute and the next gone, and that's it? And that's why I really love your attitude to life, Adam, of spending quality time with your family and making people laugh, and also just looking after yourself as well, because you just don't know, do you? And that, I mean, John's poor family, my goodness.
Yeah. I think what it was, Ben, and I think we spoke about it a lot, was it was so close to our age. And I was like, wow, he was the same age as me. And for me, I spoke to his wife and I was like, look, I would love to do something just to help you guys. And I said to Karen, I said, it really hit me. It really hit me about John. And I said, his wife's a lovely woman and his kids are lovely. And I said, I would just hope that if anything, touch wood, was ever to happen to me, that somebody would say, how can we help Karen and the kids? How can we support in that way? It doesn't always have to be money. Even if it was just to buy them a present that they wanted, just to go, And me and John worked together for quite a few years on the pantomime, and I went to see him with his orchestra. And so in this business, as you very well know, you get to know people, and those people that you get on with really well, you stay in touch with. The people that you don't really get on with, they're acquaintances, aren't they? And that's why me and you are acquaintance. But but he was such a funny, and this is the funny thing about it, and I think I said it to you, Ben, is that everybody was being really sad about it. And there was sometimes when I heard bits of music or whatever, it just hit me and I was like, I've got to go for a walk. But he would be so the other end on it. He'd be like, well, Mossy's gone, who cares? And that's the kind of person he was. But I know he had that sort of really sensitive side where he, it was all in jest. And if you know me and you know him, everything was just funny. It was just a laugh, But, life goes on. And I just hope that bit of money that we raised was enough for them to do whatever, make them kids happy. That's all that I was really bothered with. And make yourself happy, because losing your husband at 40 odd is something that you just don't expect in life, do you?
But it's such a kind gesture for you to instigate, Adam, and I think that just sums you up. You're bloody funny, you're great on stage, and you're just such a kind soul. And it was honestly a pleasure working with you at Christmas, and really want to thank you for being so open and so sharing.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure, and no, it's been lovely, and I'm so glad I got to work with you at Christmas. I said this to you at the time. But, I hope there is many other years and many other times that we get to do this, buddy, all right? So, thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, it's been an absolute joy. Yet again, you put a massive smile on my face, you cheeky bugger. And thank you for joining me in Benjy's Cafe podcast.
Cheers, buddy.
Thanks for listening to the brilliant Adam Moss. Adam will be starring in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs at the Palace Theatre Mansfield this Christmas. Book your tickets now. Don't forget, a fresh new episode of Benjy's Cafe podcast drops every Tuesday. Just find us wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a follow so every episode gets sent straight to your phone. Tell your friends, tell your family, and if you can, please leave a review. Next week, I'll be celebrating 2 years of being alcohol-free. So who better to join me in Benjy's Cafe than the co-founder of Dry App and Off the Sesh, inspiring the world to take a break from alcohol, the best-selling author, Matt Pink. I'm so excited about this chat for so many reasons. Do pop in and join us. I'll get the kettle on. Have a great day.